The United States wants new sanctions against Iran, but they don't want to go in alone. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was in Brazil this week asking for the support of that country's government. But Brazil says, no way. Joining me now to talk about this is Rebecca Ray, research assistant at the Center for Economic and Policy Studies. Let's talk about this, Rebecca. I mean, why Brazil, and why are they saying no?
Well, to answer your two-part question in two parts. First, why Brazil? Last fall, we really saw Brazil step up to be a regional powerhouse when they took a principled stand on an issue that the Obama administration tried to step away from, which was the coup in Honduras. And Lula very successfully became the regional leader. Diplomatically, the United States now has a hard time pulling together any kind of coalition without Lula. He's really established himself as someone who needs to be included. And why Lula said no, it's not so much that Brazil said, we absolutely reject your sanctions. In the press conference, Amorim, the foreign minister, actually said it's been yet to be determined whether we will go along with your sanctions or whether we will side with Russia and China, who've opted for a more carrot and stick approach, using more multilateral institutions. For example, the group of six, the 5 permanent members of the Security Council plus Germany, that's the group that Russia and China have been wanting to go through in their negotiations with Iran. And Brazil simply said, with one visit, Mrs. Clinton, you are not going to convince us to choose sides between our allies, Russia and China, and our ally, the United States.
And Brazil's president has been very outspoken about the fact that sanctions, aren't necessarily the right answer for anyone, not just Iran. But this is a really tough issue here because the United States, especially President Obama, has said, we want to negotiate with Iran. But Iran has made no effort to cut back on their nuclear program, and they say the reason that they need to put these sanctions in place are so that they have something to use as a negotiation tool in the future. Talk about this sort of fine line.
Absolutely. Actually, the reason that Hillary Clinton brought up in her joint press conference with Foreign Minister Amorim as to why these sanctions are necessary from her perspective is the uranium processing facility underground that was recently discovered in Iran. However, this was not being held secret from the West. In fact, under the agreement that Iran has with the IAEA, they were not required to disclose the existence of this site for another several years. So Iran was not actually in violation. And so I think it's very wise on Brazil's standpoint to really look at this independently. And in fact, those were the words that Amorim used in the press conference, where nations, just as individuals, need to be able to come up with their decisions about their relationships with others independently and not be coerced by a third party. And it's specifically because of that reason, because of the value of sovereignty, that Brazil doesn't believe that hardline sanctions will necessarily be successful in this situation because Iran, being its own regional powerhouse in that region, won't necessarily take well and has in the past reacted very vehemently against any efforts to pressure it with only sticks and no carrots. It's not a strategy that seems to have been successful from Brazil's standpoint, and so Brazil is opting to be an independent voice of not choosing sides between Russia and China's softer line and the United States and the United Kingdom's harder line.
Where does the United States and the United Kingdom go next? I mean, obviously they saw this as, the only way, because it seems in many cases to be sort of a last resort to use sanctions. What happens next? Do they go in without the support of your Brazils and other countries, or do they say, oh, maybe we should think about this again?
Well, I don't think that they're ready to take the next step necessarily on their own. I don't think that Hillary Clinton has made any statements indicative of the fact that she's ready to do this unilaterally or bilaterally, only with the United States and the United Kingdom. Russia and China are certainly important voices in this, being geographically much closer, as well as the fact that economically and financially, China and Brazil are economic powerhouses these days, and the United States is suffering economically. So I don't think it's likely that we'll see the United States do this unilaterally.
Certainly tough when you have globalization and the world really is shrinking in terms of who friends and neighbors now are. Rebecca Ray, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.